You know, I did look up stuttering, and one of the things that signifies stuttering instead of like cluttering, there's stuttering and then there's cluttering. Today we want to chat about creative expressions and disabilities and how they impact each other. What are we drinking today?
Today we're drinking lavender, chamomile, and elderflower.
Ooh, that sounds delicious. Hi, Editor Argentarius here. I just wanted to mention a few things. First, this video took way longer to edit than was expected or planned. Part of that was due to trying a new tool. The tool actually worked in the previous video where I talked about immigrating to Ireland, but it did not work on this one. I couldn't export it out back into my editor, so I had to recover all of that by hand. And Saoirse wasn't able to help me edit because they were busy with work. And, you know, I had to do this in between my own work. So I didn't really track how much time I'd spent on this, but my rough estimate is probably around 60 or more hours was put into just the editing of this. What happened once I started manually doing this is I try to cut out all the pauses and all the filler words. I left some in, and especially when I started talking about stuttering, I did leave in my stuttering a bit more for effect. But this is rather unsustainable. I cannot let my perfectionism get the better of me. So what you might see is you might see some differences in what I leave in next time, as well as perhaps how I do some of the caption work here too. But the other thing, the nice thing in going through this at the very least, is that I did notice something very interesting about my stutter pattern. So stay to the end of the video and I'll show you what that looks like.
So, what are some of the ways we like to express our creativity?
Well, I mean, obviously, I like to express myself with makeup and face paint. I have a few of the tools here. I like to become and transform into different fantasy creatures and animals. And I know you do too.
Yeah, one of the things that you're showing off today is some of my crafting.
Yes, I've got some of your chainmail work.
I like doing crafting, various jewelry, or like the flower clip that you've worn. There's also the crown that I was wearing as well, you know, crochet and that sort of stuff, which feeds into, I like doing a lot of, you know, quote unquote dressing up. I have a bunch of styles that I enjoy, and aesthetics that I like. So whatever's going on that day.
Your wardrobe is very dark usually.
It tends to be dark and more jewel tone, but I do have some brights and vibrants. There are some color, obviously. I do have a rainbow tiger as one of my things.
And now I really appreciate you letting me get into your wardrobe and borrowing some of your clothes that we've now shown on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
So you do have color.
Yes.
Like the blue dress.
Yeah.
Bright blue dress, that's yours.
Yeah. Well, now it's ours.
Well, now it's ours.
It means it gets more wear, which is fine.
Yeah.
I also go into yours. So sharing wardrobes has been something we've already done off and on, but now you're going into even more of my wardrobe.
Yeah.
And finding what works.
And it's not limited to just clothes for dressing up. I mean, I also extend it to like jewelry and like masks. We have a whole bunch in a drawer. Ears and tails and all sorts of things.
Yeah, just lots of different ways that we show what we're feeling like that day sometimes as well. It's not, you know, always on film. Right.
Speaking of filming, I got into face paint, body paint, makeup first, and then at the same time I was also developing photography skills, right? Because it's very helpful to be able to preserve your work, because the only thing you're really going to have to show of all this work that you've done at the end of the day, right? Because it has to come off eventually.
I mean,
yeah, sometimes.
Yeah, there are other paints that stay around for a few days.
There are paints that stay around for a few days. You can even do like a whole week. A lot of people lately have actually been asking me about this. You know, what paints do I use when...
Oh, hi, Kiki.
You okay? Oh, gosh.
Sorry if you hear the screaming child.
Okay, she decides to sit next to you. I have a seat right here just for her.
Yeah, since I can't be on today.
Yeah, yeah.
No. I get the kitty.
You get the kitty. Aw.
I don't know, she'll probably come over at some point.
Yeah. She usually chooses you during the day, but she'll come snuggle up to me at night.
Back to filming. And
Back to filming. Yeah, so, even though you have to wash this off, I'm always a little sad when I have to wash it off, but every time I have to wash it off, I give myself a little promise that I'll do it again. I got into photography, right, to preserve this, but it doesn't always capture everything, right? The essence of being painted up. And I've seen a few other face painters and body painters that do film their work, but they don't necessarily do what I do. But I started getting into filming, and that is a whole nother ballgame, right? In terms of photography, because you have to worry about sound, lighting. Well, you have to worry about lighting in photography, but you have to worry about like what you're gonna say on camera, you know? Let's see. The other thing too is I feel like there's a lot of body painters that will stream and paint themselves. I've seen that a lot. I'm really excited that that's a thing. And there's a lot more body painters that will do like tutorials and stuff. So I'm still figuring out where I am as an artist in terms of this media. And you get to be a part of it.
as well as seeing the dressing up and hopefully eventually what craft I'm able to add as well.
Right, right.
And what do we dress up as and what face paint do we do?
Yeah.
How do our disabilities impact our expressions and how we express ourselves?
Well, I would say a lot of it is limited by our chronic pain. It means that we can't necessarily do as much as we want to. For example, getting out the face paint and makeup, and today
I'm not able to.
You're not able to,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But when I did the tiger with my whole arms and hands and everything, I was in pain by the end of that. And then I go downstairs and film and all that. It's like the timer starts, right?
Yeah.
As soon as you start an activity, and then it just makes the day a lot longer.
Yeah, which that's the other thing that runs into it is, yeah, we do with the dressing up and things. There are some types of clothing or other things that I can't wear for a long time
Right.
because it's too painful to, or it's just great. This looks pretty, but like I physically can't. I cannot. Not possible.
And I think you also have the addition of overheating.
Yeah, which can set off my chronic pain a lot more too.
Right. So it determines like what you can wear and for how long a lot of times too.
Yeah, and like with my crafting, the reason why I can't do as much jewelry and things is because I have mobility issues, but just like normal joint pain in my hands.
Yeah.
So it doesn't help with trying to do a whole bunch of projects. It's like, all right, then I can't use my hands for a while.
Right.
So I have to pace myself, and I can't make as much as I would love to, unfortunately.
Right. Yeah. And I feel like standing too long or sitting too long, it just kind of exacerbates it. Let's see. Filming. I already mentioned that the day goes pretty long, but like all the things that have to happen kind of behind the camera to set everything up. I mentioned like the audio, the lights, making sure your exposure is correct, setting it up to record correctly, making sure that you're not going to drop footage.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
We'll see.
Fingers crossed, knock on wood. Even though I'm filming, I'm also taking photographs as well. You know, it's all fun, it's exciting. That's actually kind of what helps power through some of that a little bit. But I feel like getting started, getting up to that, takes a lot of energy,
Yeah, and it makes it so we can't really do even some of like the poses or shots that we want because it's just
we're done. Yeah, we're done for the day.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing to communicate, right?
Yeah, which kind of runs into with we can't do what we planned, which changing plans is made a lot harder for us because of, our autism and our ADHD. And it runs into the changing plans because of, we're saying, like the chronic pain causing flare-ups, like it did, today. So now it's, okay, well, how are we setting this up now? Because I'm not over there. What do we need to do to change?
We had to change the whole format for that.
Yeah.
Which meant extra time spent on setup, right?
Yeah, rather than getting ready or filming or what we're talking about,
Right, right.
that sort of stuff.
And we'll sometimes forget our schedule or routine if we're thrown off
Yeah.
our normal routine. Like if our plans are changed or something, we'll often forget other things that aren't correlated. Like, oh gosh, when I had to pick you up from the airport, right?
Yeah, a day late.
A day late. Because, and that wasn't any of our,
Yeah. There were circumstances that meant I had to do a stay over.
right, your plane was late and you had to stay over, and that meant I completely forgot and missed an appointment with the psychologist.
Yeah, because it wasn't supposed to happen on the same day.
Yeah.
So you're like, today's the day that I go to the airport, and then tomorrow is the day of the appointment.
Right, because
So
we associate.
Yeah, the queue.
Yeah.
Which then we had to reschedule that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's even more time and more energy. And then making sure we have it set up so we do remember, hopefully,
Right.
that the plan has changed, or things like that happen, or the flare-ups happen, or just plans change. So.
And I mean, you were talking about, because you're going to school right now, rescheduling the due date for your paper.
Yeah.
Because of other circumstances, right?
Yeah.
You just weren't able to make that deadline. But I think you had the option of doing it 2 weeks out.
Yeah.
But you did it 1 week out because it could be just another problem if you do it too far out, right?
So it's just like, I could have maybe used the time, but it would cascade into other things.
Right, because even though you get extra time, it's not free, right?
Yeah, something else has to give.
Exactly, yeah. Because even though you reschedule out further, the further you reschedule out, the more it's likely to bump into other things that we have planned.
Exactly.
Yeah. And because of all this, it does make collaboration harder, right? Mm-hmm. I started filming with just myself and actually publishing just on Telegram, and then moved over to the YouTube channel. Hi. But I wanted to make it so that I wasn't bothering you, right? Mm-hmm. And interrupting your workflow and your schoolwork. I'm very happy that we've figured out how to collaborate together a bit more. I'm very grateful for that. And I've been talking about it with some of my friends who want to collaborate, but it's very hard to schedule things because each thing just adds a new variable, right? Mm-hmm. It's not that it's impossible, and I do want to collaborate, but
how we schedule and how other people schedule can also run into issues of where we schedule a lot and other people not at all.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's like, okay, well, it's a lot harder to work with that.
Yes. Yeah, I can't just spontaneously turn on the camera.
Yeah.
And do all this. This takes a bit of work.
You don't say.
Yeah. The other thing is, especially with being autistic and ADHD, attention gets tricky, right? Mm-hmm. That's the other thing that we've noticed. It's hard to put down and pick back up things. We could talk about video editing, right?
Yeah.
That's an easy one because it's very relevant to what I'm doing today. But this happens with other things like at work or something. You know, whenever I'm asked to like task switch, I'm afraid that if I task switch, that I'm never coming back to this, right? I always have that anxiety, right? Mm-hmm.
Or you'll forget where you're at.
Yeah. Or if you forget where you're at. And then
you have to spend all that time figuring out where the heck you were.
Right. There are projects that I've had to bring back from the dead almost. There is a project that I have when I first started getting into filming, which is I wanted to do a makeup tutorial for people who've not really gotten into makeup, because not everyone grows up exposed to it, right?
Yeah.
And I think I started putting a bit too much into it, and I have all the footage for it. It's just trying to navigate it through it was a bit tricky at the time. I feel like I could do it now, but
now that we have more things in place.
Right, now that we have a little bit more of a system in place. But that project has been kind of put away for like a year now. And so starting it back up is going to be way extra work. But that's maybe more of an extreme case.
Yeah.
But any project feels like that.
Yeah, but it still has the anxiety.
Yeah.
Also, part of the other reason I feel for stuff like that as well is the novelty has worn off. So now I don't want to go back to it.
Especially when you're learning a new skill, right?
Yeah. And with crocheting and things like that, which is one of the things I'm trying to get into. It's, okay, this is new and shiny and I can get the dopamine rush and we can get going and this is great. But then once I've learned a little bit of it and it's no longer bright and shiny.
Right.
Oh, okay, what do I do?
I feel like there's a lot of like TikTok videos and stuff of like, oh, hey, I bought a whole bunch of wool. I bought a whole sheep or,
Yeah.
something like that. And it's like, I just got into a new hobby. I bought all the things. And then it's like
5 minutes later.
5 minutes later, it's forgotten about or something, because novelty wears off.
Yeah, especially if I've put it down and I'm now trying to pick it back up again, I don't have the same novelty.
Right, right.
So it's harder to get back into it if I've had to put it down or put a stop to it because now it's an abandoned project that I feel bad about.
Yeah,
or
yeah.
something.
There's a bit of anxiety about the potential guilt that you'll feel too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that makes it a little hard with our autism and ADHD to get the skills that we need for the things that we want to do.
Yeah.
That we want to express, that we want to make or create.
Yeah. Another aspect of that is sometimes I'm afraid of jumping in and getting into the deep end, right? Just getting hyper-focused really and just kind of losing myself into it because like we were talking about before, if you do that, you kind of mess up your other plans that we've scheduled.
Yeah. Or it'll kick in because it's like, oh, well, I need to hyper focus because if I put it down.
Right, right.
And it's like, I need to keep on this high while I have it so I get it done and I get through it.
Or it's never going to come back,
Yeah. And all of that wonderful fun things of, oh, yes, let me just keep going. It's fine. I don't need to sleep.
Yeah. So our feelings about this are complicated.
Which we use some things for like filming and things like that when we're talking about the lights.
Oh, yeah.
Is a big sensory thing that like we have to keep in mind that takes into our time, things like that. So sensory things in general can become an issue or just already are part of a disability themselves.
Yeah. I've noticed as I've gotten older that I'm a bit more light sensitive.
Yeah.
Which, you can't see it on the camera, but there's a light there and there's a light there and they're just pointed right into my eyes.
Straight into the face.
Yeah, and that is also one of the other reasons why you're behind the camera instead of front of the camera today.
Yeah, so like besides with the chronic pain and things, a lot of issues that I have as well as with materials and textures. So that makes it hard for me to, like we were mentioning, clothing. For like figuring out ways that I want to dress up. And if it looks pretty, that's great, but it also has to feel great.
Right.
Or I can't use it to really express myself, or it's like, great, you get this for 5 minutes, you can take a pretty picture, and then I'm out. I'm done.
Yeah, one thing I didn't express in the video with the dress is that there were moments where like the strap was a little bit too much for me.
Yeah.
Or like tags on clothes, we generally have to take them out.
Yeah, a lot of the tags we have to remove, figuring out certain fabrics that feel nice and some that are absolutely like, nope.
It's also kind of makes it hard for like, okay, do I want to get off the couch?
Yeah.
Where I have my nice cozy blanket and I don't have to dress up nice.
And with the lights and the light sensitivity, I have migraines.
Right.
And I have chronic headache is one of my chronic pains.
Yeah, that's why I try to do like the photography stuff with you, because every time we film, we do photos. I try to do it ahead of time because I know by the end of the night after we're filming, we're just kind of done, because you've been under the lights.
Yeah, it's like I have to go be horizontal and in a dark space and do not flash bulb me.
Thankfully, I don't use flash photography.
Yeah, I know, which is part of the thing.
Yeah.
But it's still like, knives straight into my eyes.
Thankfully, I'm a bit less light sensitive than you are.
Yeah.
I can stand it a bit more, but I have noticed as I get older, like the lights in the office, those fluorescent tube lights. Horrible.
Yeah. So it's a lot harder for us doing photography and filming because of my sensitivities, or like it puts a time limit on it. So it's a lot harder for me to be like, oh, look, I want to talk or show this off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, the other thing too, speaking of sensory
Yeah.
things, is, I have hearing loss. Hi, Kiki. Is she demanding attention?
Yeah. Ah, soft kitty. Speaking of wonderful textures.
Oh, should I mimic that gif of like, hey, and just eh, eh. Yeah.
Oh, you're fine.
It's of a deer that takes off the
Oh,
hooves,
the
right?
hooves. It
Yeah.
has like little fingers underneath.
Yeah.
Eh.
I can't do it quite that fast with these, but yeah, I've got a hearing aid. If I didn't tell you, you wouldn't be able to see it usually. I kind of wish that hearing aids would be a bit more visible and that people wouldn't discriminate
Yeah.
while you're wearing them, to be honest. I think that's why they make them invisible.
Mm-hmm.
I would wear a hearing aid that's very visible. I know there are some people who decorate their hearing aids, which is
Yeah.
fun. Um, I have not been brave enough to do that because they're rather expensive, and I do not want to accidentally get anything in the microphones.
Yeah.
But I can hear again. Kind of.
You can hear a little more.
A little more, yeah. But the interesting thing is that I have hearing loss, but I'm also sensitive to noise, right?
Yeah.
So there will be noises that just get on my nerves.
Yeah. So there's like some stuff that we can't watch or do or is just sitting there. We can't be
Right.
part of because of that.
Oh, yeah, like we can't go to like music festivals a lot of times.
Yeah. Or we have to super prepare for them.
Yeah, or heck, wearing earplugs a lot of times is not cool, or, just doing this is not cool.
Yeah.
Um, that one time when we went to a show, they were like killing us with their lights and
Yeah.
their music, and whoever did the equipment did not check the thing, and the microphone was giving a lot of feedback.
Yeah.
You couldn't hear them. We couldn't enjoy them. We couldn't see them because the lights were just directly in our eyes.
Yeah.
It was a horrible time for those people on stage. Anyway, there are noises that give me physical pain.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's another thing that can kind of put a time limit on things. Like, I know when you were editing a video, your jaw clicks, right?
Yeah.
And that particular noise bothers you
Yeah.
when you hear it. I've gotten used to hearing myself talk. But yeah, until I fix that noise in the audio, it's really grating,
Yeah. I can only listen to it for a very short amount of time.
Yeah.
Which we try to do our best to fix it in audio so it doesn't annoy other people, but I can't fix my jaw click physically in real life.
Yeah.
More than I already have and I work on, but
Yeah.
it's something that just it comes and goes.
So it just, yeah, in terms of like impacting our creative expression, the hearing loss and the noise, it really determines my experience in a space, right?
Yeah.
So honestly, what helps is having like an online space sometimes. A lot of like one-on-one if it's in person, or like very low amounts of people, to be honest.
Yeah.
And then we can't go to like places with loud noises or music.
Yeah, even if we enjoy the music because we can't control the noise.
Yeah, or hear people or have a
Yeah.
conversation like a human being.
Yeah.
And I guess speaking of conversation, right? I I didn't know I had a stutter, but I stutter. I did not realize that, because my knowledge of what stuttering is was well, I'm doing it again. So I didn't know that what stuttering, how it can manifest in people is you have long pauses, right? That can be part of it. The other thing that can happen with stuttering, I guess that's an example of it, is I will repeat the same words. So a lot of times people think stuttering is like speaking just the very first sound, right? The but kind of stuttering.
Yeah.
I'm not very good at that kind of stuttering because I don't do it. Apologies.
Yeah. But that's what we see in media.
Right. I'm only using it as an example here. My stuttering is expressed in pauses as well as repeating the same words sometimes. And yeah, I didn't know that this was a form of stuttering. I didn't know that I was a stutterer. All I knew was that when I figured out how to make my speech flow a bit better,
Mm-hmm.
It changed a lot in my life. You know, I got I got rewarded for it. How what does that tell us about the world? You know, like I can make my speech flow a lot better, a lot more smoother. The content of what I had to say is no different, right?
Exactly.
And yet I get promoted at work, you know? This was years ago, by the way.
Yeah, which makes it harder for you to be able to, like we were talking about, outside of the, we can't get ready on a drop of a hat
Oh,
and record
yeah.
and things that we want to say. Hard for you to get out what you want to say sometimes
Right.
because of the stuttering.
Yeah, I was reading an article about stuttering, and one of the ways you can tell that it's stuttering instead of what's called cluttering is that stutter will happen before speech initiates. It's like beforehand. Cluttering happens after it starts initiating. So the beginning might be okay, but then it just gets a bit cluttered afterwards. With
Yeah.
stuttering, it's hard to begin. But that means that in conversations, how that manifests is that a lot of people can just bowl over me, essentially. And a lot of times I have problems like at work and stuff where people, you know, when I'm stressed or anxious or having a bad day,
Overloaded.
overloaded, it'll get worse. And then it just makes it easy for people to talk over me.
Yeah. So then you can't say what you want or need to say.
Right. When I'm having a good day, it doesn't, it's not really an issue. It still happens, right? If you
Yeah.
know how to hear it, but it's less noticeable.
Exactly. And that's one of the things we have to keep in mind is what are some of the ways that we accommodate ourselves so we can express ourselves?
Right. Well, I actually have some tools here. Not all of them. What I like to use, I like to use a journal. I'll just write things down, you know? Especially speaking about the stuttering, is if I have to say something with a lot of really good flow, like the poems, right? I wrote those poems down rather than trying to do it from memory and just get it out of my head. And then you suggested, which I really appreciate, that I just have the journal out with my poem and just read from it on camera.
Yeah, because then it's a lot easier for you to say what you need to say rather than running into, the stuttering.
Right. Or eye contact.
Yeah.
Because I have the journal in front of me, I can look at the journal and it makes sense
Yeah.
that I'm looking at the journal instead of like looking off to the side of the camera and like looking at the screen and back and forth.
Yeah. Or like having it too far down when it's harder for you to pay attention.
Right.
Which, yeah, I have to use some specialized tools, which we don't have up there, but for like my crafting and things, for especially like for my chainmail.
Like bigger handles on your
Yeah.
tools. This isn't your tool, but
Yeah.
it's got a big handle.
But yeah, on the crochet hooks, having them have a little bit of a bigger grip as well as like a rubberized one, so I can have a more comfortable grip and so it doesn't fatigue my hands as much.
I have my hearing aid, of course.
I have the compression gloves, which are up there, as well as like my knuckle splints, my ring splints to help because my fingers bend backwards way more than they should.
Hypermobility.
Yeah, like the hypermobility stuff.
Oh no, it's running away.
Run away!
It's gone.
Nope, dead to me.
Oh, we also use timers
Yeah.
because our perception of time is a little bit wonky. So we use timers to give ourselves some semblance of here's how much time is passing, you know?
Yeah.
You've got a timer going on right now, so we know how long we're taking and a little bit with pacing. But in work, what we'll do is we'll set up a timer and we'll work on something for like 20 minutes or so and then give ourselves a break.
Yeah.
Or 40 minutes, however long we think we can go for, you know?
Yeah, to help with the not getting fully hyper focused and forgetting to eat.
Right, yeah.
And then once we're done, why
no,
do I
I'm
feel
starving.
horrible?
Yeah.
Timers also help us keep track of like with our calendar where we will schedule breaks and
Yes.
we'll schedule things for like, all right, we can work on this for a few hours that day. So we do need to be mindful of, okay, how long is an hour?
Right,
You know?
right. And we also schedule our fun too. Like
Yeah.
we'll schedule things with our friends like we mentioned earlier. We'll also schedule between ourselves, okay, this time we want to watch a movie together.
Because otherwise it can be a lot of just going and going and going. And then we realize we haven't done
Anything fun.
anything fun for a while. And it's like, no wonder why I feel a little bit, bad.
Yeah, yeah. Editing can take a lot.
Yeah.
And our work and school work can take a lot too.
Which the other ways what we use is talking about like the textures and stuff
Oh, yeah.
is we have some comfy clothes that we also enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
We might not show them off, but it at least gives us a little bit of happiness to wear them.
Yeah.
But it also gives us a break from not feeling like I need to look a certain way all the time, even as much as we would enjoy being able to dress up all the time.
Right.
Well, here are some comfy clothes that we still enjoy, but don't take as much out of us to put on or wear.
Oh, I actually am wearing one of those examples. It's a white and gray hoodie.
Yeah.
It's very, very oversized hoodie. I'm wearing it in one of my videos, which is the one about the eyeshadow, and I'm wearing it while I'm showing off the makeup. I just didn't want to change clothes that day.
Yeah. Sometimes it is just, all right, just do it while comfy.
Right. The other thing that we do is for times when we're nonverbal, when we're just kind of overstimulated or for whatever reason we're nonverbal, we'll use sign. Granted, we're not fluent in sign language. We've learned back in the US and we've learned in Ireland, but we know enough to communicate certain things, and it's helpful to get very simple things without having to like get out our phone and type it, which is another thing that we use too. If we need to communicate something a little more complicated that we don't know the signs for.
Yeah, or need to add to and just be like, nah.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll kind of use a mixture of American Sign Language and Irish Sign Language.
Yeah, to help kind of speed things along when we need to.
Right.
Or even when we are in crowded spaces.
When we can't hear a thing, or like, especially I can't hear a thing.
Yeah, when you can't hear a thing, or I can't because I've brought my ear defenders, but we're trying to get basic stuff so we're not having to shout at each other.
Right. It's very useful for that.
Yeah, so if we've accommodated ourselves in other ways while being out, but still need to communicate, but we can't scream at each other.
Yep. It's also good for making comments that other people can't overhear.
Yeah. Or having our own sign. We have a few of our own signs which we're not going to share. That means certain things particular to us.
Oh, yeah. We'll come up with like name signs for certain things.
Yeah. So that way we know like what's going on. Like we have one for our cat. So if we're needing to talk about her, because like that doesn't involve other people and they don't need to know.
Yeah, they don't need to know her sign name.
Yeah. Like that sort of things.
Speaking of communication, we also communicate when we need to take a break. I mean, we mentioned this before, but what's going on?
She's just being adorable. Speaking of the cat.
Oh.
Sorry, she's not in front of the camera.
Do you want to get a picture of her? Do you have a phone?
I do have one.
Yeah.
Where did it go?
This technology where we have cameras in our pockets.
I know.
We are too powerful.
I forget sometimes.
Make sure it's in the correct orientation.
I will try. If she will. No, now she's looking away.
Oh.
No.
Right.
It's
right
all right.
when the camera comes out.
It's okay. I'm not on camera either today, Kiki. You don't have to be too. Sorry. Communicating when we...
Right. All right. Speaking about communicating, we mentioned this earlier, but we actually communicate when we need to take a break. Like you communicated to me that you're not going to do well on camera today.
Yeah, I don't have it in me to get painted and everything, and
Behind lights.
the lights would just knock me out today.
Yep. I just see purple halos and ghosts in my vision.
It's fine. Who needs to see?
Yeah, and that helps us prevent things like being overloaded.
Or, burning out, or things like that, of where to take a break before it becomes a problem, if at all possible.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
I know this a bit more on like the negative side of things, of like how our disabilities...
How do we cope?
Yeah. Like, coping is kind of neutral, but like before then, of our disabilities and how it stifles some of our creativity in some ways.
Yeah.
But are there any positive impacts that we see to our creative expression?
That's a good question. So one of the side effects that I have of, I guess, a brain or a mind that works differently is I have synesthesia, which, I guess the best way to describe it is I have a landscape of connections where there's different textures, there's different shapes, there's different things associated with other things. So like this helps me at work with like problem solving. I'm a software engineer. People ask me, how do you solve this so quickly? And how did you put that together? And I'm like, I just navigate my mindscape. I don't know.
I know I need this kind of piece.
Yep, this one's fuzzy feeling. This piece of code goes over here, you know? It's a weird thing, and I didn't notice that I had this, and I've been using it for like a good portion of my life, probably all my life, but it's just another way that my brain makes connections. But like putting together makeup designs is very similar too. It's like, okay, I need zebra stripes, I need tiger stripes, I need a base that goes with this look that looks like a tiger, but I need to superimpose it on a human, right?
Yeah.
That's using not, I mean, you can do all these skills without synesthesia,
Yeah.
but the way that but the way that I solve this is by kind of reaching into this world where tools, techniques, solutions also have a texture or shape or something that fits. And then it's kind of like, you know, what is it? The round thing goes in the round hole kind of kind of puzzle when solving it. And I don't think everyone has that.
No, definitely not. I don't have that.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I mean, to my knowledge.
That's part of how I found out that like, oh, I guess not everyone solves things the way I do.
Yeah. I mean, it's not synesthesia, but I attach things to music a lot more. I am very like musically minded, and I'm pretty much like, if you want to teach me anything, if you put it in a song, I will not forget it.
Right, right. When you were learning to code, we were like, if we could make coding the musical, that would be perfect for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I was still able to like figure it out and learn, but it is one of those things. So I even had it pointed out to me when I was like a kid and I was going home with one of my friends. Me and my friend were coming back from a show that we had just seen with the parent, and I was singing the songs. I didn't know them before, but I was starting to sing the songs in the car ride on the way home, and they're like, "You just heard this."
All the show tunes.
Yeah.
All the
How
time.
do you know? There's a reason why I'm a theater kid.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I didn't realize not everybody was just like, oh yes, let me just immediately put that into my long-term memory or something.
That's the thing too, is like, okay, because we do that kind of naturally, right? One, we're not aware of that we're doing it and that it's odd. And two, we kind of expect other people to, you know, catch on to these things too sometimes. It's like, hey, keep up. It's like a person with long legs walking beside a person with short legs, right? It's like, hey, keep up. And they're like,
Yeah, I have to put in a little bit more work here.
yeah, for those certain areas. I really appreciate you being very musically minded because I'm quite the opposite. And in fact, we have found out, because you've introduced a lot of music to me and a lot of musicals, is that when I'm listening to music, I'm either listening to the lyrics or the tune.
Yeah.
No in between.
Yep. And they are stored separately.
They're stored separately. They go in this box, in this box.
This is what this one feels like, the words, and this one is what the tune feels like. And never the two shall meet.
Yes. Also, I think kind of going back to, because we were talking about our limitations with things, right? For example, we have a time limit on things. It takes a lot of extra work for us to prepare and schedule things. Awareness of our limits help us with our creativity. And that sounds backwards. As much as artists will say, you can't put me in a box. It's like, yeah, maybe, but like everyone has a budget, right?
Yeah.
Whether that's a budget in your energy, your time, money. It doesn't have to be money, but it can be. You know, having those limitations aren't necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah.
For an artist. I feel that because we've been doing this for a long time now, we've been living with our disabilities and we've been surpassing our own expectations a lot, to be honest.
Yeah.
But being aware of the hurdles actually makes us more creative because we find very creative things. We think outside the box to get to where we want to be.
Yeah, and it makes us more selective, like with our capacity. So we look at our calendar and we talk to each other and we see, okay, what do we think we actually can do?
Right.
So, okay, well, we have all of these ideas. All right, what do we think will fit in this? We only have this amount of time. So what do we think is going to be, one, doable, or two, that we think is like, no, we need to put this one here, which helps us when we're going through the like, oh man, we need to do more. Like we were talking about in our other episode of like,
our previous episode. Yeah.
Yeah, with like the existential crises of like, oh my gosh, am I doing enough? Am I doing the right thing?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I only have a limited time.
Hmm.
We only have a limited time, so what are we going to do?
I think kind of on that, I think we actually scare some of our friends with how much we schedule
Yeah.
things because they're like, why do you? Because we talked about, we schedule our fun time too, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, why would you schedule that? Why would you put a time box in it? And it's like, well, we could go over or under or something, or we can reschedule. But having it there reminds us that we should be having fun.
Yeah, that we're allowed to have joy, that we're allowed to enjoy things.
Yes.
That it doesn't always have to be work.
Right, right. But having that awareness is actually kind of freeing, and it helps us focus on what we can do in the moment. So let me know in the comments what you do to express yourself creatively and how you might accommodate yourself. I look forward to our discussion. Thank you all for liking and subscribing. It really helps me out. Hey, you made it to the end of the video. Thanks for watching. So I did promise that I would show you some neat observation with my stuttering, and here it is. One of the things that I noticed, so I'll pull back some of this to retrieve some of that pausing here. One of the things I notice is I'm pretty much stay very still while I'm paused, almost like a human statue. And it's relatively consistent too. It's not all the time, but it does make it easier to make jump cuts, which is kind of an interesting benefit here. Even if I do have like an or an this is, I think, a filler word here. I do have, I stay pretty still. So it makes it relatively easy to make those jump cuts. It's a interesting side benefit, but yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for joining today. Hope to see you in the next one. You
All right,
can
stop
hit
recording?
stop. Yeah.
All right. No.